Welcome to the questions and responses for cleaning arteries. Now, let's get into it. Question 1 from user 1508. Dr. B, is the brain bypass surgery only a solution for critical stenosis? Or can we make it better with diet and lifestyle changes? Okay, you got to look at this. Brain bypass surgery. It figured that brain has some arterial supply. You got the common carotid that comes up, splits to internal and external. And what the bypass surgery is, those arteries, the common carotid or the internal carotid, is compromised. Now, it only gets compromised if the artery's been damaged or if the structure is damaged. Figure that 1 kilo brain burns 90% of the body's oxygen. So it has a lot of need for blood. It's absolutely fantastic because there's carotids on either side. You have vertebral arteries in the back going up the neck. There's always a secondary and tertiary supply to that brain. Now, the risk of this surgery, because what they're going to do, they're going to literally reroute one of the arteries, bore a hole in one of the arteries, sew it there. And I mean, you're talking a 5 to 10% increased risk of stroke during the procedure. You're operating on the brain. There's some big deals, but none of the brain bypass surgery or the surgical procedure addresses the underlying cause. And so, yeah, the bypass after it's done can reclog. There's multiple complications from this. And without looking at the whole process of what clogged it in the first place. So if there was physical trauma, then the surgery may be an option. If there's certain structures have been crushed, okay, but the risk of the surgery is huge. So you can clean the arteries. Look at what Linus Pauling wrote down, okay, with vitamin C, L-lysine, cayenne supplements are great vasodilators, but look at the mechanical distortion. Since that brain burns so much oxygen, it creates its own food called cerebral spinal fluid, and that fluid is produced in the middle of the brain, and it drains through the opening. So a lot of times, intracranial pressure can be one of the contributing factors for compression of those vertebral structures. So number one, look at the structure, because if you have a beautiful curve in the neck and the body is straight up down, great, then that's not a contributing factor. If you have a loss of curve, reverse curve in the neck, or lateral deviation, then that could be a contributing factor to alteration in that brain structures. Because, and you'll even feel this, if you feel a tender spot, not on the very front here, but in the middle, and it's tender and hot, that is the suture. It's called the sagittal suture, and the covering of the brain called the meninges actually invaginate up through that. If there's tenderness there, it could indicate that there's increased intracranial pressure. And that could be from a loss of curve, reverse curve, or forward head carriage. And so identifying the structural component that could be a contributing factor is going to be huge. And then look at what damages the arteries in the first place. None of the bypass surgery addresses the toxic seed oils or manufactured foods or the toxins in the environment that damage the arteries that supply the blood vessels. They're called vasovasorum. So they're little tiny microvasculature that supplies those arteries, because in the arteries, they have a muscular layer that constricts and dilates. So if those arteries are damaged, then the body, in its infinite wisdom, lays down a protective coating underneath the lining of the artery called endothelial of calcium, fibrin, and cholesterol. And that's literally to protect the arteries. So with just bypassing an artery that's clogged, knowing that the artery can be cleaned, and knowing the causative factor, that it's the alteration in vasovasorum, or the blood vessels that supply the blood vessels, you really got to address the underlying cause. Even if you get the surgery, you still have to address the underlying cause of why it clogged in the first place. Otherwise, it's going to clog again. So, and that has to do with a toxic environment, toxic diet, alterations in structure, and then diet and lifestyle changes. So this can be addressed. It can be an emergency, but if it's not an emergency and you need to look at the underlying causative factors, which is going to be toxic and deficient lifestyle or mechanical distortion. And that's going to be huge, because if you have a mechanical distortion, of the neck, altering the blood supply up or the flow of cerebral spinal fluid down, and you do the surgery and don't address that underlying cause, that's not a good idea. And let me know how you're doing. And now, please share this video, this vital life-saving information. Like this video and subscribe to our channel. Helping us grow, we can literally change the world. Question 2 from Michelle Krause. Wow, it's been so long since I've seen you, Doc. Greetings from South Africa. Since the pandemic, my heart rate just ran off with me. I'm on beta blockers and aspirin. I don't know what's going on. Yes, Michelle, you got bad doctor syndrome. Okay, the heart has 2 nerve supplies. One's in the top of the neck, one's in the top of the thoracic area. And if there's an alteration in structure, you got an alteration in function. That's just basic common sense. What a beta blocker is it's blocking the sympathetic nerve supply to the heart, which is in the top of the thoracic area. And the aspirin a day is meant to thin blood without checking for blood viscosity. What they're thinking is that if there's an interruption of the heart, okay, or an interruption in the heart rhythm, that can create a turbulence, and the blood cells are so fragile that they're going to stick together, create a clot, and cause damage. So they give an aspirin in order to reduce that. However, aspirin is one of the leading causes of kidney damage. It can increase your risk of stroke and increase your risk of gastrointestinal bleeding. And the beta blockers, again, there's always effects from these medications, but without addressing the underlying cause, that doesn't make sense. But we are in a crazy world where a doctor will give a chemical for a body trying to adapt to stress. And then people end up getting sick or ill or having secondary and tertiary negative effects from those medications or the medical intervention. And I think this is probably why Hippocrates said, look, first do no harm. And if you have somebody with an elevation in heart rate after a physical stressor or emotional stressor or chemical stressor, you don't give a drug to lower that heart rate down. That's insane, because the body is self-healing and self-regulating. You look at the nervous system, which regulates and controls that function, and you look at the stress level. You don't just give a drug to lower it. Yeah, so you will get better. Look at the x-rays, okay? Get an x-ray of the neck and upper thoracic area. Have the chiropractor over there. And there's some great chiropractors from New Zealand Chiropractic College. And get them in there to clear that nervous system interference. Do diaphragmatic breathing before you check your blood pressure and heart rate, because if you're in a stress state, it will be elevated in an intelligent response. And look at water as the best blood thinner out there. Also, look at the book. This is one of the greatest books ever. It was called Left for Dead, and they about a failed bypass surgery. Cardiac bypass surgery, and the benefits of cayenne supplements. So get some South African spicy food, my friend. Good to hear from you. Question 3 from NV6679. Could you recommend a good juicer? There's a lot of good juicers on the market now that are fantastic, and it depends on the country you're at. But so look at the basic parameters. Slow speed masticating juicer is the best, because that way you're not aerating the juice, which can oxidize it faster. Also, the slow speed masticating means it's chewing it up. It's not centrifugal. So you're going to end up with more of a dry pulp. So you're going to extract most of the juice. So look for any slow speed masticating juicer, and make sure it's easy to clean. The Green Star was one of my favorites because that sucker would never jam or break. The Omega juicer, the vertical juicer, I liked because that was on my counter and it worked really well. The first juicer I had was this fast speed masticating Champion juicer. It was incredible. You could juice tree limbs, but the pulp was not that dry. And but we drank it so fast. That's back when my boys lived with me. Slow speed masticating is the best. Question 4 from Tom Billard. I have all kinds of stress for decades. A chemically toxic apartment, 4 decades of toxic meds. I'm on limited disability, money for health foods. limited disability money for health foods, therapies, tools, treatments that I could change my life in 30 to 60 days, but after 40 years of life-altering issues, so frustrating. I'm with you on that. Because if you trusted the medical system and you're talking 40 years of toxic medications to alter a stress response, I'm with you 100%. Just look at your body. Your body is a hunter-gatherer body, and whatever activity you can use. So every joint you got to move every day. That's going to be the key. And that doesn't cost anything. You can do resistance training. If you're a paraplegic, you can do the arms. If you're quadriplegic, you can do the deep breathing exercises. So do what you can with what you have where you are, number one. And then know that sleep is the most restorative thing that your body can do. And this is something, look at our sleep restriction videos, so you can reset your circadian rhythm so you can sleep. Then 3 bowel movements a day. And this has to do with eating healthy fibers. So when you're going out getting some type of food, look at a jar of psyllium husks, okay, or non-psyllium husk fiber if you have some bowel issues. But take a tablespoon of psyllium husk fiber with each meal, and that will help increase your gastric motility and help the intestinal and the health of the intestinal tract. You can also ferment your own foods. That only requires, a mason jars, okay, and some vegetables. You can grow your own food. And I know it sounds crazy, but even if you're in an apartment, there's the grow lights will work, anything, but grow some food so you can get some healthy fiber. And then look at the 3 magic beans, corns, beans, and squash. That is the pure protein. And you can get this stuff dried, organic and dried. And so there's ways to get healthy food on the cheap. And look for neighbors. If you're close to a rural area, or if you're in the city, ask some friends to take you to a rural area, because there's a lot of farmers that will have a lamb or a sheep that they're ready to slaughter, and you can purchase half of that for really, really cheap. I mean, cheaper than the packaged processed meats inside of a store. So there's a lot of different ways that you could do it, but practice on sleep, practice on drinking water, practice on exercise, and it could be as little as diaphragmatic breathing, or it could be cross-crawl exercises to get the brain. There's always something to do, always something to do. And that, watch the Mel Gibson movie, We Were Soldiers. There's always one more option. There is, brother. And look at the physical, chemical, and emotional stress. So just visualizing health and joy, doing diaphragmatic breathing, checking out heart math breathing. All of these things cost no money, just a little bit of effort. So there is a lot you can do by breathing, mental and emotional health, drinking a little bit more water, and movement. And let me know how you're doing. Question 5 from Alice Farmer. How about meats? Why can we not eat meats? Is this another low-fat, plant-based diet lesson about quantum biology? Means only 8 local, geographically grown in seasoned foods, animals, and plants because of deuterium-depleted water. This explains how Eskimos can live long lives, living predominantly off of animals, and islanders who can live predominantly off of plants. About mineral-depleted soil. What about phosphates? How do we get clean, mineral-dense foods? I don't know who said we can't eat meats. Look at your body as a hunter-gatherer body, and so you are designed. There's vegetarian cultures on the planet. There's solo meat or cultures on the planet, and they all have the same human body. So your body is called an omnivore. So you're designed to consume meats and plants. And depending on the area you're at, you're going to consume more meats or more plants. But now, and you're right about the minerally depleted soil. This is why home garden, if that's an option, beautiful. Organically grown foods, fruits, and vegetables, fantastic. So those are all things that you can do if you have the opportunity. If not, look at sea plants, okay? And we're talking seaweed supplements. So this is pretty cheap, but you need a nutrient-rich soil, and you need a plant to draw the copper, selenium, zinc. You're talking 125 different minerals out of that nutrient-rich soil. And then it ionizes it by the plant drawing it up, and then you can get the absorption. So look at that sea plants, but make sure they're not from China or Japan, because those can be heavy metal toxic. Look at New Zealand and look at California has decent options. And that is phenomenal. The dulse and also Irish sea moss. I got a good connection for getting Irish sea moss at one of the shops close to our farm. They get it from the Caribbean, which is, again, fantastic. So a lot of sea plants are going to be great for minerals. And look at healthy, organic meats, fruits, vegetables. A human being's diet should be the exact same as their great-great-great-great-grandmother. Okay, why? Because they only ate seasonal, they only ate healthy, they ate organic, and they ate what was available. If it were preserved, it was fermented or dried. And this is how the 10,000 generations that preceded you lived. And look at the book, The Blue Zones. You've got groups that are teetotalers and the groups that drinks in Sardinia, the largest, oldest males, 7 liters of red wine a month. I mean, so it's a variety. Weston A. Price, check out his work. Fantastic. But no, you can eat meats. Now, if your question wasn't answered in this video, please visit the Dr. B VIP site where we can speak more freely, because I still need to censor on the social media in this environment. At least if I was in the UK, I'd probably get a little bit more than arrested. God bless you. Stay healthy, my friends.